Gentlemen, how are we? I want to take this opportunity today. It's a Friday heading into a holiday. So I'm going to take this opportunity to do a little bit less of a formal thing. Take this a little bit more informal and give you guys just kind of a little yappy session, a little rant about how I'm feeling about certain things, okay? And if I'm repeating myself on any topics, I'm not sorry because these are important topics. But the first thing I want to start off by talking about is the fact that none of us are thinking big enough. Almost all of us are pursuing our entrepreneurial ventures as individuals. We're embracing this sort of Batman archetype where we're the Sigma, right? To use Gen Z language. But really, what we should be doing is fucking this Batman perspective away. And we want to be an Avenger. We want to assemble the Avengers. We want to be a part of teams. And this is, I think, one of the biggest lessons I've learned over the past however many years working in being an entrepreneur and in analogous spaces, right? Founding teams and founding businesses and projects and things like that. And I think that so many of us and so few of us are having the right perspective. I heard Peter Thiel recently say on Rogan, he was talking about Musk and how the PayPal mafia, which Thiel was a part of, the founding team behind PayPal that Elon Musk was a part of, and all these other guys who went off to found things like LinkedIn and YouTube and Palantir, all this shit, right? And at the time when Musk was starting his ventures, SpaceX, Tesla, all the guys were looking at him and saying, hey, look at Musk. He doesn't understand risk. This is too risky. He's probably going to fail at both of these things, right? And Thiel, looking back, with 2020 vision, realized that all of them didn't understand risk, and Musk did understand risk. Because if you pursue things that are big enough and you tell stories that are compelling enough, people are going to come join you and they're going to plug in to the goal that you are pursuing. And what the real magic behind Musk isn't actually his intellect, it isn't his mind per se. It's actually the fact that his goals are so big, mainly making humanity a multiplanetary species, that he's able to attract the best talent. That is his greatest ability, okay? By far, it's not even close. And I want to encourage you guys on this channel, and because I'm interested in working with you guys. I'm not interested in doing I guess what I'm kind of already doing. I feel like I'm preaching a lot, right? I'm educating you guys, and that's part of what my focus is, but I want this to be a little bit more of a collaboration. I want us to achieve things together, right? And lead you guys in the capacity that I'm able to lead, and allow you guys to lead me in the areas that you are able to lead me, right? And vice versa in every which way, okay? Because this perspective of running things as a team is wildly, wildly more impactful. I'm way more interested in seeing what I can do with a group of even just 2,000 people versus what I can do with two or three buddies, right? Like, and I think this is one of the most underwhelming elements of the internet so far, and social media especially, is are we coordinating better, really? Maybe a little bit more efficiently, right? We're definitely being able to, we're able to more efficiently communicate and get on Zoom and do these things, but is our ability to work in bigger, badder groups better? Not yet, I don't think. I don't think we've learned how to work in groups better. I actually think that it might be even a part of our conditioning, right? Because the way that we're trained, the way we're brought up in school is very much you're forced to think individualistically, right? You're not actually encouraged to seek out your friends, right? And to, instead of everyone going off to their own individual colleges and all this to pursue their own degrees and their own specializations, you're not encouraged to find your 4 or 5 closest friends, to go to that city where you guys are feeling the most excited and most alive to pursue, and then starting that business that has 0 cost to start, whether it's a newsletter, a landscaping business, it could be anything. Doing that, to me, is wildly more intelligent, higher leverage. You're going to learn more. Like the unless you're like going and pursuing like a hard skill, like engineering, being a doctor, being a lawyer, like you should be considering what I'm talking about. And like I want to give this example too, because there's a lot of guys online right now, right? There's a lot of them, a lot. And they make money in crypto and e-com and things like this, right? But I don't, and these guys have so much influence right now, but I find it much more interesting, and I think it's a lot harder for, say, like the Nvidia CEO, right? So the Nvidia CEO, I just saw this amazing little graphic, right? Or I guess it was just a screenshot of his LinkedIn profile showing like his 5 years of experience working as a busboy at Denny's, and then 32 years as the CEO of Nvidia, and like they have this famous picture of him and his friends at a booth in Denny's, right? Like, do you want to be talking to someone and listening to people who have made it in like the e-com Chinese product drop shipping industry, you know, or are you interested in talking to someone and listening to someone who's, maybe 5 years into their NVIDIA journey, right? Like, would you rather be listening to the NVIDIA CEO when he's 5 years in? But you, like, the thing is, you guys aren't going to listen to him, right? You're not going to listen to him because he doesn't have the Lamborghini yet. He doesn't have the fancy watches yet, right? But like, what is your goal? Like, I'm genuinely asking this. Like, what are your goals? Is your goals to get to 50,000 a month as quickly as possible? Because that sounds good, right? But you're not thinking about what the drawbacks of that might be. Because what I see is that these guys will stall out and plateau in their skills. Like they'll get comfy, cozy real quick, right? You start making $500,000 a year. It's kind of like a corporate gig. It's kind of like a salary, to be honest. Because what happens? Your skills plateau. You stop developing skills. So once you get too solidified, once you get too rewarded by the world in terms of status, money, all these things, right? You're going to plateau in terms of your skill, like your hunger and all these things. Like especially if you have a wife and things like that on top of that, and like a significant partner, like your motivation's going to go down. And that's okay, right? I just have this intuition that there's a big group of young men out there, and I think, maybe it's a part of this community, maybe it's not, um, that is interested in doing something big, doing something that actually requires decades of effort, right? And that's what's always been interesting to me. And I think this started for me. I was actually thinking about this recently. I think this started actually my freshman year of college. I was wrestling Division One, and I had these older guys, like the captains and stuff on my team. And they, at the end of the season, they forced me and a bunch of the other younger guys to go to the beach and to take a bunch of mushrooms. Not just like a little bit of mushrooms, but like 6 grams worth of mushrooms, right? And if you know anything about mushrooms, that's like more than a hero dose, right? Like that, Terrence McKenna and these guys talk about. And obviously, I went to another universe, right? And what I learned was that if I wanted true peace, true fulfillment, I needed to do something I thought I couldn't do. Okay. And for me, it was a really clear answer at that time. And it was actually writing a book because I was always like, it was one of those weird things where like I was dyslexic, right? Am dyslexic, whatever the fuck. And I was always told starting from a very young age, starting before I was even taking meaningful tests and things like that, that I was bad at taking tests. And so when you're told like in first or second grade that you're bad at taking tests and like people are treating you different and all this, like you're going to be bad at taking tests, right? It's like it kind of like psychically almost hypnotizes you into that reality being true. And I overcame that later in like college and stuff, but it took time, right? So it's a long way for me to say that this I one of the main reasons I spent like 6.5, 7 years writing this book was because of this, because of what happened at the other side of that experience. And this isn't even meant to be a plug for the book because, at the end of the day, like none of this goes, like all the royalties I make from this, I donate to this nonprofit called Aerial Recovery that helps, people with human trafficking and things like that, natural disaster relief. They hire like former special forces and they deploy them into environments that need their help effectively. So they can use their skills after the military, which is a huge issue for these types of guys, right? So with that being said, what that I think like epiphany led me to is realizing also that when you are engaged in, I guess, how like our current culture talks about like manifestation, right? You see something in the world that you want, that someone has, right? You're likely wanting that thing because you have something inside yourself that is telling you you're not enough, and that through some form of social validation, you are going to um, experience the sensation of feeling as if you're enough. But you can't experience that type of satisfaction through the outside world, through social validation. That can only come from fulfilling the deepest part of yourself, right? And it begs the question, how do you fulfill the deepest part of yourself? And that's a very challenging question. And like people read these self-help books and they seek out these answers, right? And I think I have a pretty decent perspective on this, and it's this. If you face your fears, like really face them head on, and you do the things you think you can't do, and you achieve that, that's what will provide lasting fulfillment. That is what is going to satiate you. And it doesn't even matter what the other world, like the worldly success of that may be. But if you're overly chasing worldly success, you're going to get worldly results, and worldly results are not lasting and they're not permanent. And if you're interested in the things I talk about, I'm interested in permanence, permanent change, permanent truths, right? Things that are going to carry with you, right? Not just things that are there for signaling and all that, right? Not that there's anything actually wrong with that, but does it get you where you want to go? Does it get you the result you want? I don't know. I don't know. So if you face your fear, right? If you face your fears on the other side of that, you're actually tapping into something a lot deeper than you might otherwise think. Because facing your fears leads you inevitably to facing the group's fears. And if you face the group's fears, what happens? Well, you slay dragons. You're a dragon slayer. And if you're a dragon slayer, what happens? You get the gold, right? You get what the unconscious desires. Because when you're engaged in manifestation, you're only able to manifest that which you are able to imagine. And what if you want things that are outside your imagination, what are outside of the things that you can already visualize? Because if I'm visualizing something, right? If I want that thing, like, I want that girl or whatever, like I can, and I can see it, then I can visualize having experience. And if you're skilled at visualization, then you can have that experience, right? And then once you have it, it's like, oh, I kind of already had this because you did. Versus when you face your fears, when you face the group's fears and you achieve that, you get things that are not, you're not capable of imagining. You get what the collective unconscious desires, which by its very definition is invisible. That's the game you want to play. Okay? That's the game. And for me, I think right now, like the things that I really care about, like especially in the context of this channel, is helping you guys start that process, helping you guys really write out. Because, I preach writing so much because but it's not, I'm not talking about writing when I'm talking about writing, and I'm encouraging people to write out their goals and their beliefs and the things that they want. Because when you do that, right? Because I would bet that if each of you were to go sit and write everything that you want, you would start editing it immediately. And that tells you one thing: you don't know what you want because you haven't thought it through. And writing is just the process of actually thinking things through, right? Writing isn't really writing at all. It's just thinking, right? And if you're not writing, then you're actually not thinking. Because, and like, the group is not thinking. The collective, our collective consciousness, especially here in America, is not thinking. We are unconscious. Our beliefs and our behaviors are not in sync. So let me walk you through an example. Say we have a left-leaning, well, it doesn't even, actually, a political person, a millionaire in America. They live in California. They have a house in Malibu, right? They're killing it. They've got this financial advisor. They got $10 million in a stock portfolio. Life's great. They're on their social media. They're talking to their friends. They're shitting on big food, right? They're shitting on the military industrial complex. They're shitting on big pharma. Cool, do that. But if you're also then owning and having millions of dollars in the S&P 500, what does that mean? It means that you are a shareholder in McDonald's, Pfizer, Boeing, Raytheon, Johnson & Johnson, Moderna. Do I need to go on? Taco Bell, right? And you have to be a complete imbecile to not pick up on the fact that you live in a market-driven democracy. You do not live in a democracy that drives markets. Do you follow the difference? You live in a system where the markets drive democratic process, okay? The stock market, money drives politics. Politics does not drive money, right? No one will disagree with that. So what that means is when you go to vote, right? When you go to vote for your little politician, right? The proportional value you're giving to that politician is minuscule relative to when you go to vote on the stock market and buy shares in companies in McDonald's, when you're doing S&P 500 and all that. Your proportional value you're giving to those corporations, which you fundamentally disagree with, is so substantial, right? You are giving value to these companies that you don't agree with ethically, that you don't agree with in terms of like in any context, right? And yet you are actually supporting them in ways that are much more meaningful and substantial than you will ever, most likely, unless you're giving maybe like $250,000, $500,000 to a politician directly in your local politics, like to a mayor or something. But outside of that instance, you will probably never support a politician proportionally the way that you're supporting, Pfizer when you buy S&P 500, right? With a meaningful purchase. And this is what I mean. Collectively, we are not in sync with our values, our stated values, and our behaviors. If we behave and we're using our money to literally be a shareholder in fucking Raytheon, which is basically all they do, because Lockheed Martin, Boeing, they build like commercial aircraft and things like that. But Raytheon is a good example of one where all they do is build missiles, right? So if you're a shareholder in these companies, what do you think you're doing? What do you think you're doing? It's very confusing. But we have very little ability to, one, organize ourselves in groups and to actually take a message like this and put it out there, right? Because I mean, I've never heard anyone talk about this, I guess, before. So maybe this is my idea. I can't imagine I'm the first person to think this up. I've never heard anyone talk about it, right? And the other thing I would like to to get your help on, guys, is this idea of usury. Is this idea that maybe in America today, where 20, let's say 22% of Americans have more than $10,000 in credit card debt, and the average interest rate on that credit card debt is 23%, maybe too many Americans are being chokehold by credit cards and the interest rates that we allow because we allow that to happen, right? If you guys are not aware, Julius Caesar, before Christ, yes, many decades before Christ, he enlisted these monetary reforms in Rome, where he made it so that the maximum interest rate that you could charge in Rome, in Roman society, was 1% per month, meaning 12% a year. Because this issue of what is an ethical interest rate has been a conversation that has lasted for more time than Christianity, okay? And Islam and these major religions, okay? You go read what John Locke, Adam Smith, Napoleon Bonaparte, all of these guys said about the nature of interest rates and the nature of, how that affects and undermines a true capitalistic system. And I want to remind you guys of a few other things. Whether you like it or not, America is a Christian country. Like, it was founded on Christian values. I would make the argument that the American Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and maybe even the Federalist Papers, and probably not, but at least the Bill of Rights and the US Constitution are actually kind of Christian documents. If you really think about it and look at it closely, like these look and feel like more like Christian documents than previous government documents, okay? So what that means is we have the ability as a country to forgive debts to huge groups of people. If we wanted to, and we were able to organize ourselves enough, we could forgive all credit card debts to Americans. Just an idea. And we could actually make it so that interest rates, like what Julius Caesar did, couldn't be charged more than 1% a month. These things are constitutional. We could do this. And I mean, imagine the spirits that would be lifted as a result of that. You guys have family members who are, have a different range of success, who have made a different range of decisions, right? And not everyone's as intelligent as other people, right? Some people are walking around the college campus and they're handed a pamphlet from Chase Bank and there's a Chase Bank on their college campus when they're 18 years old. And then they're encouraged and peer pressured by that 35-year-old man, like, hey, if you don't start building your credit, you're going to get fucked, right? So is it really not a forgivable offense? Like, if you're, when most people are like shamed into starting their credit, right, by older individuals, like, I think that conversation is something that is worth having. I really do. I really, really do. And I think that we can absolutely do that. And I don't even think it'd be that hard because I think that there's a lot bigger things we can do on the other side of achieving those two things. We normalize that the S&P 500, blindly investing in it, like Warren Buffett has taught us to do, right? Which is okay. He's not wrong. Of course he's not wrong. Our grand turtle master's never wrong, right? But this is like, but whenever people are, framing things as like, oh, this is just an objectively safe, good thing to do, then your alarm bell needs to start ringing. Needs to start ringing. And that's what the S&P 500 has been over the last many years, right? And I'm not saying don't invest in it, don't trade it, all these things. Like, no, do your thing. Like, no judgment. I am not here to judge. I do not feel I am in a position to judge anybody. And I really mean that. Uh, and that's for personal reasons and, and met Jesus and stuff. And so I just think that's like a better approach. But I still, still got my beliefs that I want to share. And I just think it's a lower leverage thing, right? I think that you would have a lot more leverage if you just literally exported what the 500 companies are, removed all the ones you don't agree with, make the allocations to those, and do it that way. You don't have to just, you know, be a simp to this thing. Yeah. I mean, maybe you guys don't care. I mean, like, it doesn't seem like anybody cares, besides me, but whatever. Whatever. Okay. What else should we talk about? Oh, yes. I wanted to bring this up. Not that it's really relevant to what we're talking about, but I just kind of had this aha moment the other day that like Alex Hermosi and Andrew Tate are actually pursuing a very interesting similar goal. And I think a lot of you might be thinking that Hermosi's actually beating Tate at that game of internet marketing and stuff, but he's so not. He's so not. And I don't want you guys to forget that. Tate is like a lot better at marketing than Hermosi. And I don't even, why am I talking about this? I don't know. The whole Hermosi thing kind of weirds me out, I think. Because he's been around for so long and I like was one of his like early subscribers on YouTube and stuff. Like I think like I was at least in the first 15,000 like on his YouTube or whatever. And it's just so weird, like with Layla and shit, dude. How Layla like just completely transformed her face and body just like very publicly and just like turned into like this C tier Kardashian. Like, does that not weird anyone else out? And I don't mean to judge them because I think they're both really badass, but um like, I have a lot of respect for them. So I don't know. I probably shouldn't have said that. But I'm gonna start doing this more. I'm gonna start sharing my thoughts more. And also, this is what I want to talk about. Sorry. I understand that probably a lot of you are like, enjoying listening to me and are like receiving value from me and, get it. But you're probably still wondering, like, hey, why am I listening to this guy? Like, what has he done? And I'm going to answer that question later in another video. But I want to give you a little context of why I have not answered that question quite yet. One is I wanted to kind of solidify myself without having to, just talk about me, and like the things I've achieved because I've always found that I've just never felt empowered. I've never liked the vibe of talking about myself and the things I've done, especially because like I come from like my grandfather. If he like were to see that I was, you know, uh, I've just got a lot of family members who would just like beat me. At least they would have back in the past if I like were bragging about certain things and shit like that. So it's just like not really from the culture I come from. That's one thing. And the other thing is the people I've worked with, guys, I've worked with like deca billionaires, okay? But when you work with some of these dudes, right? How do I say this? They're the most private people in the world. Like they don't want you talking about this online. Like, you know what I mean? And I'm surprised that no one else, like I haven't really heard that many other people talking about this or complain about them having this issue either, but I've signed NDAs that I probably shouldn't have signed, Like these are scary documents, right? Um so like you're going to get a sense for what I've been up to over the last however many years since my entrepreneurial journey started. But it's just a little bit challenging for me because I've invested in like very long-term plays, right? I'm not interested I'm not out here claiming I'm like inspired by Leonardo da Vinci and I do e-com stores and trade crypto, right? I'm not that guy. Okay. If you want to go listen to him, Go listen to those guys, right? That's not my style. My style is very much like more of a, I don't know, definitely a little bit more Renaissance man-ish, but the approach I'm taking is a long-term game, very long-term game. And so the things that I've been building over the last 5 years will be very sexy and awesome to see, but they're still being built. And I've got partners who are hyper private, and I have a massive amount of respect for them. So if they, if their preference for me is to not talk about those things, then I'm going to follow their preference and at the detriment of my own success in things like this. Okay. That's a very easy trade-off for me to make. So yeah. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for today. I hope this was entertaining and valuable to you guys. I think yeah, I mean, I think you guys are awesome. I think if you're watching this video right now and you got this far, like, you're the man. And I hope you guys know that, like, I'm pretty accessible. Like, I want to respond to you guys. I want to get to know you guys. I want to, like I said in the beginning of this video, I want to work as a team with you. I'm not just some dude who's like interested in just doing things by himself, getting my bag and walking away. No. I want to do interesting things. I want to do bigger things than you can. I want to challenge my own ability with you to see how big we can actually think, to see how, like, what kind of problems can we solve? Because there are people out there who need help, man. There are people out there who really need help. And not everyone is blessed with the same education, to be born in the same area, to be born with some genetics, to be, whatever it is. People need help. And like this idea that everyone is just like everyone's just got to pick up themselves on their bootstraps and all that, it's just nonsense. So there's people out there who need our help. So if we do something big enough, inspiring enough, then we're going to do it. And hopefully together. Cool? Peace and victory, guys. Peace and victory. See you.